Bob Pockrass is kind enough to join us once again from Fox Sports. He covers NASCAR, and he's going back to work this weekend. Darlington. You can follow Bob on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. Bob, first off, thanks for your time. Secondly, you and everybody around you are still safe? Everybody doing well?
Everybody's doing well. Thank you.
Okay. And third, are you going to be at the race? I mean, how many media are they allowing to be in Darlington?
Well, Fox Sports has a limited number of people at Darlington. Regan Smith is going to be the only pit reporter there. The studio or Jeff Gordon, Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds will be in the booth. So there will be 4 quote unquote like print or internet type reporters who can only go to the press box. And those will rotate. So I won't be going to Darlington, but they're keeping out virtually all reporters. All the reporters won't be allowed in the garage. They can only go to the press box, and then there's like 2 or 3 designated photographers who can go into the garage. So they're pretty strict. Like, look, there are only 2 officials who will actually go from the garage to the scoring tower to help officiate the race, and those 2 officials will be in a separate booth than the other officials who are never in the garage. They're working hard to try to compartmentalize everybody so that if somebody does end up getting sick, that they can say, okay, this person was only in contact with as few people as possible.
Okay. What are they doing in terms of the teams and the drivers? And more importantly, have they given any information as to what they will do specifically if a driver were to test positive, or if any of the team members test positive, and how that is going to go?
Right. So they are going to, people have to come. They started like filling out forms about 5 days ago. They'll come and they'll get a temperature check. If they have over 100-degree temperature, they'll be sent over and with them to talk to medical personnel about any symptoms they have. And then the medical personnel will decide if that person can come in. People will start being screened like 6:30 a.m. for a 3:30 race. They have all the crews and teams staggered so that they don't all arrive at the same time. Drivers are just told to get there 4 hours before the race so that if for some reason they show a high fever and they're not allowed to race, that somebody else can get there soon enough in order to fill their spot. NASCAR will give drivers waivers, so if they do miss a race, it's not like they're out of the playoffs. And if somebody does come down with the virus afterward, they'll have logs of who they were with, and they'll ask them and anybody they were in contact with to self-quarantine for 14 days.
He's Bob Pockrass. He covers NASCAR for Fox. Follow him on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. All right, let's just get to the racing. These guys haven't been in a car in 10 weeks. I know some of them have done the simulator stuff and all that, but 10 weeks they haven't been in a car. And now of all the tracks they're going to start on, cold. No practice laps, no qualifying, nothing. Cold. It's the Lady in Black. I mean, this has got to be one of the biggest challenges of these guys' careers, right?
Yeah, I think it was Bubba Wallace who said it's the ultimate hold my beer moment, right?
Perfect for him to say too.
Yeah, it's it won't be. It's certainly not easy. Totally green racetrack. They're not used to that. When they start a race, usually there's a lot of rubber down the track. That some drivers have even used the word timid. At those first few laps. Although I've never heard of a driver being timid, but maybe as timid as you can be going 150 miles per hour or so, right? So they'll do their. I think what they'll do, they got a competition caution at lap 30 where they can make several adjustments, and I think they will be. I wouldn't say timid, but they'll be careful. They'll be a little conservative just to get through those first 30 laps, and and then hopefully they'll be able to get their car set up a little bit more to their liking.
Okay, in theory, that sounds really good. Give us your predictions of 2 or 3 guys who will break that. I mean, I have the guys in my head, but I mean, you mentioned Bubba Wallace. He would be my lead guy to say he would screw up the let's follow the leader for 30 laps. Who's most likely to not adhere to the well, we're just going to wait and see until the competition caution at lap 30?
I may think I think the young guys like Tyler Reddick, maybe Ryan Preece, who from his modified days is maybe used to more 30 to 50 lap races. I think those two guys might be a little bit and they just don't have the experience at Darlington that they need to kind of know what they what they can and can't do. And then gosh, if you're thinking about guys who maybe still have a lot of experience, part of you wants to say Kyle Busch, and then part of you will say, well, he's veteran enough to know better, but we know that sometimes being conservative isn't Kyle's forte.
Yeah, no question. Or Joey Logano.
Right.
That matter. There are a couple of great comeback stories in this race. Ryan Newman, after the horrific, terrifying crash at Daytona, and also Matt Kenseth out of retirement, which, Bob, I don't know your thoughts. I thought that was a brilliant move. First off, I hated the fact when he was forced into retirement. I thought he still had some good racing left in him. And I think it's great for a sponsorship standpoint. Plus, to me, a 40-something-year-old is not old when it comes to driving. I thought that was a brilliant move by Ganassi to bring Kenseth out of retirement. Yeah,
well, they brought somebody in who they felt could potentially win races. Obviously, somebody they felt that the sponsors would like, somebody who's used to working with sponsors, somebody who, has a fairly uncontroversial past, except for that thing with Logano, right? But he's somebody who can maybe bring some stability to the team when they need it, and also somebody who, granted it was 15 years ago, but somebody who's worked with Kurt Busch as well.
Well, and yeah, I love the fact that we say he's old, in his 40s. The way they cover this sport has always been, it's as transparent as any sport. When we get to talk to drivers right before the race, we talk to drivers during cautions. Are you hearing anything about the broadcast end that they will amp that up? Because there is an opportunity. I think we all understand that being first is great as long as things work out. And NASCAR's got a great opportunity to regain fans, to get new fans. How important do you think the conversations with the drivers and some of the extras that NASCAR's always given us are this weekend, when the potential for a few million people who have never watched a NASCAR race is there?
Well, I know we'll do the best we can, and it's certainly it's different. We only have one pit reporter there. Drivers are going to be in their motorhomes by themselves until they walk to the grid about 10 to 15 minutes before they fire the engine. So I think we're working on some things to try to bring as much information to the fans, and working on some things to try to have as much communication with teams and drivers as we can, but also, following the health and safety guidelines. And that's going to be, and obviously that's important to everyone. You talk about being on this, all eyes are on NASCAR. They first off, they need to follow the guidelines, for the reason the guidelines are there, for health. But then there's also going to be kind of a secondary, everybody's watching, and, you don't want to not follow the guidelines and make it look like that you're not taking it seriously.
Were you surprised that NASCAR announced 12 races at 5 different locations yesterday before they've even run a lap in their return? I thought they might have waited till after Sunday and said, hey, it went so well, and then unveiled the future. Were you surprised at all? And also, any surprise at all with the tracks? Bristol, Atlanta, Martinsville, Homestead, and Talladega.
No, not surprised at all at the tracks, and not really all that surprised, because teams need to get their sponsors aligned. They need to start their car builds, start now that cars are ready to go to Darlington and probably Charlotte. They need to know what cars they need to be working on next. So they needed that type of schedule. And also, there were several races that were postponed that hadn't officially been postponed. Kansas, Michigan. So those tracks needed answers too. So wasn't too surprised. They're bad. They can only work though about a month out, I think, just because they just don't know what's going to happen in the other communities with the virus. It's hard to predict what their situations are going to be more than 4 weeks from now.
Well, I don't know if NASCAR, I mean, I'm sure they've thought about it. I don't know if they've given any sort of word of what they're going to do. But as we were talking about, David just kind of mentioned Talladega without fans would be really strange. But as, Wisconsin's talking about reopening on a much larger level than other states. What happens when they race somewhere that maybe has opened up? Will they let fans in if the state's allowing crowds, or is NASCAR going to control this and say no fans until we say fans?
I think NASCAR's working with the local officials because even though there's talk about opening up, there's still certainly large scale events are not as aren't always the first or even second thing. They're pretty much the last things to say go. And if you look at Indiana's plan, their plan allows for limited capacity sporting events on July 4, and the Brickyard 400 is July 5. So, I don't think there'll be fans at any of those events through June 21. The next race following that on the schedule is Pocono, and that area isn't an area yet that Pennsylvania has even started opening up. I think NASCAR will take their cues from health officials, but they need certainty from those officials that they can do it with they probably need about 3 or 4 week notice, I would think, in order to get everything set up to try to figure out who can come, because, is it the people that they've already sold tickets to? Do they say, okay, if you're a season ticket buyer at this track only? So I think they'd like to, but they're not going to just say, like a week before, say, hey, we can now have fans. So let's see what we can do.
Bob, thanks so much for your time and your insight. Stay safe, and hope to talk to you again soon.
All right, talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Bob Pockrass, who covers NASCAR for Fox. And you can follow Bob on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. I don't know if you found it interesting, Mark, but I was curious. And maybe it's a little selfish, but I'm just, how many people are they going to allow from a media standpoint? I mean, NASCAR's got a ton of media. And Bob's like, yeah, 1 pit reporter.
4 reporters, and it alternates.
And 2 photographers. That's it.
Because I know that they make the rules up as they go sometimes, but as far as during the race, from a broadcast standpoint, I think NASCAR is the most transparent sport we have.
I don't think any sport's better covered than NASCAR.
So I'm eager to see what they're able to accomplish with limited broadcast abilities.
Now, Bob made it sound as if the 3 announcers were going to be at the track. Mm-hmm. I had been told that the 3 announcers were going to be in Charlotte. So that'll be interesting in and of itself.